Thank you for joining us with the World of Ability Podcast Network. My name is Sue Roskoff, and we are here today with Paige Spears, who is the host of Choose Greater Health. You know, when you can choose anything, I think choosing greater health is about the best choice you can make. I love that that is the name of her show. Paige, I am so glad that you are here with us today, and I'm going to go ahead and hand it on over to you here. So here is Paige Spears with Choose Greater Health.
Yeah, thank you, Sue. And it's good to be here again this week. And I've thought it would be good for you to get a chance to ask me anything about my business and my brain injury recovery journey, since you are not as familiar with it as others might be. And I would just love to get to share more details with you.
Excellent. I'm looking forward to this. So, how about we start kind of at the beginning of this story? I know you just mentioned you have a brain injury. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, and I'm thinking that that started possibly as early as 2004 and even beyond that with the anxiety. And I was taking antibiotics long term, starting when I was 13 through about 18. And that was for acne and prescribed by a family doctor who honestly, they don't know much about uh, all of our interconnected systems. And so what that did was uh, it changed my microbiome and neurotransmitter levels for the worse, since neurotransmitters are produced in the gut. And then that led into prescriptions for anti-anxiety medications when that cropped up in 2004. And so that's when things got further complicated, medically speaking, where the my neurotransmitter levels had been depleted by the antibiotics use, and so then the what I took then was serotonin reuptake inhibitors, SSRIs, and also benzodiazepines, and that was prescribed by the same family doctor, come to think of it. And so then things just they it seemed like they got better initially, but then I developed tolerance to those medications and just needed further dosage readjustments. And things, of course, did not get much better. And then in 2016, when I was 32, I was at my office at my first and only full-time job, doing data entry for a law firm, ironically in the medical claims department. And that's when I was in the mailroom with coworkers and heard later that I had come back from a psychiatrist appointment earlier that day, and also had a GeneSight test run. And by then it was really too late for those results to make much of a difference with the genetic level metabolic interactions with all the medications. And it just wasn't good for me. And so I was in the mailroom with my coworkers, who thankfully were there to call the ambulance when I blacked out, and I had cardiac arrest also. And so I was in the ICU for a few days, and then at the University Hospital for a total of about two or 3 weeks, and in the rehab center for about another 3 weeks. It was 5 weeks total inpatient. And during that time, I can say that standard medicine saved my life, and the additional therapies that I found further enhanced it.
That, so, what I'm hearing, it sounds like your whoever what your doctor was at the time was trying to do good things for you, and in the end, actually inadvertently caused some bad things to happen.
Yeah, and
And
I had a few different doctors in that time period also, and between Missouri and Illinois, and that's another issue with the gaps in care and providers not really even being able to communicate between each other, but everyone had similar ideas of, oh, we'll just change your medication and dosage.
So that's that's where the journey began. And what kinds of things have you done since then? I know at this point you're here, you're doing a podcast, and I think this is amazing. And the whole idea of choose greater health. What inspired you to go this direction and to share with others like this?
What put the anxiety into permanent remission was, without the pharmaceuticals, was improving my nutrition and starting with 8 months of twice weekly neurofeedback for about the first 8 months of the year after the injury. And so from there, I've seen an integrated medicine provider, and there was focus there initially on nutritional testing, and that did a lot for me. And so I started on some supplements for that in 2018. Actually, that was about 2 years later. And I have also in this last year started seeing a naturopath and getting further guidance on what I can do nutritionally to for a balanced mood and overall well-being. And so nutrition is a really important cornerstone of brain injury recovery and health and well-being. And so I would highly recommend that, and uh, an area called nutritional psychiatry, where a psychiatrist will specialize in nutrition and the functional nutrition testing rather than relying exclusively on the pharmaceuticals. And I've also found functional neurology that's been really helpful. Besides standard neurology, functional neurology does things with testing and exercises to really get a good picture of the areas of the brain that have been affected. And so I heard about that through the Brain Health Summit, and that's another platform, the Not Invisible platform. And I got the idea to do that and figured that might be one of the missing pieces for me. So I did the research and found a functional neurologist in Missouri, and within about an hour and a half of where I live. And that is what I put my disability back pay towards. It would be a 3-day initial intensive appointments, and that was really good for me. And also, what further what added to that in a good way was neuro movement, and I've gotten that locally from a provider. I got a referral to from another provider, and that also really just gets into how my brain is communicating with my neuromuscular system.
Excellent. Yeah, you've had a lot of different things that you've worked with, the way it sounds, and the idea of going natural and making these healthy choices, nutritionally speaking, that I know we often hear about how you gotta look at what you're putting in your body so that you can function at your best. And you are a living testament to that is making a difference for you. What has been your favorite aspect of the nutritional journey that you've been on?
Also, chiropractic adjustments. I heard about that from a local support group facilitator, and also therapeutic horseback riding. That's a good one for me too, since I started out in college as an equestrian major. And so I've done a little bit of informal training in class with the horses at Cedar Creek, where I currently ride. And that is group classes of 3 out of 4 seasons of the year. And I started out in private lessons with an OT at a barn in Poplar Grove, Illinois called Brave Hearts, and that's where I did all the I did all the things with where I would start out in a bareback pad and ride with my legs facing one side of the horse and then swinging around to the other side and facing the back also. Or I would uh, hold an exercise ball and rotate around with my upper body. Or I even did a thing where my instructor would stand behind the horse I and we each had one end of a PVC pole in each hand. So then she would swing the poles with the horse's gait, and I would get that same movement in my arms too, and that would mimic walking stride and arm swing.
Oh, excellent. So, how many years have you been working with horses?
I started riding English style in 1987 and 1998 when I was 13 and 14.
Excellent. And now today, how often do you get to go and work with horses?
The classes just started again last month, and it goes until next month for the spring session, and that's every week. And then the summer runs from uh, late June until August, and then autumn session is uh, September through early November.
Excellent. Are there any other types of physical activities like that that you enjoy besides riding horses?
Well, I have been interested in getting back into dance somehow or other. I've really missed that.
What kind of dance did you do?
Oh, it was mostly ballet, modern, and jazz, and some tap. And jazz is my current favorite. And
That's
I
a lot of fun.
graduated with a BA in dance from Beloit College.
Excellent. Oh, see, I keep getting these little nuggets of things that I did not know about you. That you are very much a dancer. Oh my goodness. So yeah, I would love to see the day where you're telling us all about how you are back in dance again. That would be so great.
Hmm.
And how old were you when you started dancing?
I think about 5 or 6. And it was mostly ballet classes.
And is this
And then when I was 14,
uh,
I switched over to jazz.
fun?
And the
And were
thing
you in?
that got me interested in horseback riding really was when I went to this, it was kind of a career interest day my middle school class had, and I went with a classmate to an, uh, a hunter jumper horse barn, and we spent the day out there with the barn manager, and then I had to leave early in the afternoon for a ballet evaluation, and she got to stay and ride, and that since the evaluation turned out that my feet were on the small side and somehow too high arched for point classes, so it wasn't worth it for me.
Uh, so now, what are you doing? You were focusing more on your nutrition and your health aspects.
Yeah, and although we do get show ribbons and medals for the last class of every session at Cedar Creek, where we have a horse show, and I've gotten all the horseback riding awards that I've had my eye on. Like I got my first blue ribbon medal when I was 17 at a camp in Indiana when we did a jump competition, and my division was a trot, and it was me and one other rider, and I won. And then also at Cedar Creek, I got my first blue ribbon rosette at the local park district stable when I was 14, and that was a walk, trot, canter class, and I won over five other riders. And then at Cedar Creek, I got the Rider of the Year award for 2021, and that was Fancy Black. Although the first show I was in there in 2017, that was when my class all got fancy Missouri Horsemen's Association Grand Champion ribbons, I guess surplus from one of their shows. And I got the Rider of the Year plaque, and we've also gotten medals for everyone on rainbow ribbons. So I've gotten all the awards.
Awesome. Oh, it's exciting to hear all that. So if somebody was interested in learning anything about horse riding, where's a good place to start with that? How does a person go about that?
If you're interested in therapeutic horseback riding, that can be an online search, and there are uh, therapeutic horseback riding directories of stables and providers available. And although we got the referral to Brave Hearts from someone who presented at a support group there in Illinois, and then there was a referral to Cedar Creek from there.
Excellent. Have you done any other sports and rec type activities?
Dance and horseback riding were really it for me.
And I can understand that. I know I'm a water skier, and I love it, and I'm happy doing that. So I can totally appreciate that you found your sport, and do you have some people that you typically are there with that are often at the same sessions that you are at? Because I know I'm just thinking with skiing, we have our own something of a community that we develop with our friends and people have become good friends with what we do with skiing. And I'm kind of with what you do with the horseback riding as well.
Well,
So you have
there
lots
are
of friends that
barn
you've made
friends and
there.
acquaintances, and we generally meet up at the annual holiday party in December.
Very nice. So I'm going to head back over to the conversation we had about nutrition and how that's made a difference for you. How did you begin that part of your journey? Where did you really learn the things that you know now?
A lot of it I learned independently from those online health summits and figured out that was a big part of it. And also, the neurofeedback put me in a better frame of mind to be supportive for the nutrition to be good for me, also.
Excellent. I'm curious too then. So with the nutritional side, do you enjoy cooking?
Yeah, I've gotten to like cooking, and what I do for meal planning, and I have a whole sort of system, is that at the end of a week, I choose recipes from various websites or meal planning apps, and then from there, I typically copy the recipe into my phone, or I have it there already, and then I go through the ingredients list and make a grocery list of things we need for that. And then my husband Sean can put in a grocery pickup order. And
Very
I
nice.
also, I also batch prep in what I can in advance, like a day over the weekend, and I can pre-slice veggies and put together spice mixes and have that done and ready.
So how much time do you devote to that each week then? If you're doing a lot of meal prep kinds of things, how? Because I honestly I don't do a lot of that myself, but I know it's a good idea. So I'm kind of curious how much time you set aside for doing all those things.
It's well, wherever I can fit it in around the other things I do, typically on Fridays as needed. And well, we've been doing more traveling recently, so that's that many fewer meals planned for.
Very nice. So, with starting this podcast, then what inspired you to come on and share more about your journey with others and to make a difference for other people like this?
It's like the idea of why I wanted to start the business of creating what wasn't available when I needed it at the time, and a place that brings together all the resources that have been instrumental in my recovery and community support.
But well, let's dive into that a bit more too. Tell us about your business.
I'm starting with a Facebook group, the Choosing Greater Health Community, and that is my current landing place for everyone who, say, listens to this show or I meet at events and support groups. And I'm also in a few other support groups, like there's the Brain Exchange and Seminole Spirit, and the Brain Exchange meets on certain Wednesdays of the month, and Seminole Spirit is, I think, every second and fourth Saturday at starting at 11 o'clock Central. And so those are some of the other communities that I'm involved in, and I would like to bring that sense of community into the experience of other brain injury survivors as well.
Excellent. And do you have a website that you could share with us?
PaigeSpears.com.
Excellent. So pagespears.com, and that's where you can go and learn more about what Paige is talking about and what her business all involves. So what would you say your biggest challenge was when you were first dealing with the brain injury and trying to figure out what do I do next? What was one of the bigger hurdles you had to overcome with that?
The limitations of standard medicine, like, well, once I'd regained basic functionality, well, how else could I get more improvement? And developing the patience to wait in between finding the resources. Plus, patience additionally with the progress that I can make in any one session.
Excellent. Was there anything along the way here that you ended up being surprised by, as far as whether it was what was going on with the medical community, or even support that you got along the way?
It was interesting to find out what other resources there were, and I knew there had to be other answers to at least certain things. Although now that I'm dealing with sciatica, well, that's another thing entirely. And there are some areas that have been helpful to a certain point, and then it takes another option to pick up after that, like neural movement after functional neurology. That's a little on the surprising side. Although I know I could also benefit from, say, regular massages too.
So now with your business, what kind of goals do you have in the near future with that? I know it sounds like it's a wonderful resource for many people. What do you see in the next, I'd say maybe year or two, with what you're doing with your website?
The ultimate vision is something like Knowell, and that is a functional health minded community that's on the established side, and they have different membership levels and providers in their directory. And they've also partnered with a chiropractic college, I think. And so it would be good for me if, for instance, I could expand my partnership opportunities to include Logan College of Chiropractic, possibly. That is in the Chesterfield, Missouri area. And really just be a go-to resource for those with brain injuries, and also what can be good for people with emotional things going on or blood clots.
Yeah, when you were first dealing with this, with your injury, was there anything in particular that are you were looking for information on that you wish you could have had at your fingertips that now with I know with what this resource is that you've created, you have a lot there for people to utilize. What was the biggest thing that you wished that you could have had at your fingertips back when you were first starting to deal with all this?
Answers to, well, it was my reading being slow that was affecting me, and I did manage to relearn how to read. It took about 6, 7 months of work and practice every day. And I also worked with a friend of my mom's who was a teacher and knew how to do things like that. And that and my walking. Since another thing that happened is that I had it was in my first week home from the rehab center, about 6 weeks post injury, and my left ankle and foot swelled up and then started spasming, and the spasms went all the way up into my calf, between my calf and my toes on the left. And that was a real mystery symptom that nobody seemed to be able to figure out. And that also was the impetus behind my, there's got to be other options available. This is something, and there's probably someone who knows what it is, and I wish I did too. And it was uh, beyond the PTs and OTs, and it was just aggravating in a way that I couldn't, that my condition didn't fit the standard model of care, apparently. And so it was finally when I found functional neurology and neuromovement that things really made sense.
Getting answers to things that are a mystery along the way like that, what a difference that makes. Even peace of mind, just knowing that, okay, there's an answer, there's a reason.
Yeah,
That helps so much.
yeah.
So, what kind of personal goals do you have? I know we're kind of talking about business here. Do you have other things that you're hoping to do for yourself in the next year or so?
Oh, get some savings going for travel in personal development areas. And also, I would like to uh, get my book funded. It's a prescriptive memoir and features interviews like these with other functional and integrated medical professionals and sharing my journey along the way and the additional resources available to others. And it would be good to say, get some collaboration to maybe start a crowdfunding campaign for that.
So, hear a little more about that now. So, you said you have a book that you've written. So, what? Tell me more about your book. That's exciting.
Yeah, the working title so far is I Chose Greater, and it's about well, a lot of everything that we've talked about so far, and it's a chance for the featured professionals who would be in the directory also to have a spotlight in the book. And so I would have the book as a deliverable within the community, and I would also like to share it for uh, with Brain Injury and Holistic Health Conference Coordinator for a bulk purchase as attendee gifts.
But, well, and you just mentioned something I didn't know existed, that there's actually conferences that exist like that. How often do those take place?
Well, there are Brain Injury Association of Missouri conferences that happen 3 times a year, one in each of 3 locations. And there are other conferences also that I imagine. And I know the Brain Injury Association of America has had an advocacy day in DC, and I think that has been in March for Brain Injury Awareness Month. And March is also Blood Clot Awareness Month.
Excellent. So, in just thinking here with the message that you would like to have as kind of a take-home message for those that, whether it's when they visit your website or speak with you directly, what kind of message are you hoping to share with the world?
We can work together to create more options for you, and I can even do one-on-one concierge sessions to find the best resources for you.
Excellent. And have you had people along the way that have been kind of in that role for you in your journey? Do you have anyone who's been kind of in an inspirational or leadership role for you?
My current brain injury support group facilitator is a really significant one, and she's the one she was my somatic movement provider, and she also gave me the chiropractic referral list. And she's had her own brain injury journey to contend with also, with initially undiagnosed concussion.
Oh, interesting. So, that I wasn't even thinking about that aspect as far as like concussion, gosh, when I think about our youth community and all the sports that they participate in, and I often have thought, I wonder how often we have our people in our midst that are dealing with something like an undiagnosed concussion and are in their lifetime then having some kind of something that they're dealing with because of that, and it basically remains a mystery to them as to why they're having to deal with different symptoms in their life. And it could be something like that where it just goes back to you had a concussion at some point and it was never dealt with.
Yeah, I know I had whiplash in 2013 in a car incident, and that was when I had my first chiropractic adjustments, although that wasn't a regular care plan, unlike now.
So with your care plan, then I know you talked about nutrition and chiropractic and the equine therapy. Is there anything else that you have found to be substantial for you and in your journey?
My whole list is neurofeedback, nutrition, functional neurology, therapeutic horseback riding, somatic work, neuromovement. So it's a multifaceted approach.
Yeah, that's always a good route. If you just pick one thing and do one thing only, it treats something well, but there's all those different aspects of health that you need to address. So that you have the multifaceted approach like that is, in my mind, a very wise choice. So that you can, if you can approach it from all of those different directions, it's going to be a more well-rounded outcome.
Yeah,
So, and I know some of the things you mentioned. I know I'm not necessarily familiar with some things like can you go through your list and just give an example or a bit of a definition of what those different things are, so that if somebody's not familiar with what that is, then they have a starting point.
sure. Neurofeedback is with electrodes through a cap on my scalp, and there would be certain protocols set up through a computer system, and I would watch movies, and so the screen would flicker then with the TV being hooked up to the electrodes, and the screen would flicker depending on how my brain would respond to the protocol, and the picture would be more clear the better it was going. And therapeutic horseback riding, of course, is the well, like riding lessons, but with exercises and mostly personalized to the individual. And a lot of conditions can be treated that way. Chiropractic adjustments are, well, my chiropractic clinic, they use a thing called an integrator, and that it's preloaded where pressure is applied to the spine, and it vibrates the bones back into place. And also, they use a nerve interference detection thing that rolls down the spine. And I've gone back to that twice a week for a while now to hopefully get the sciatica under control. And another thing is there's somatic awareness work and also myofascial and neuromovement, and those are all about connecting the mind and body and remobilizing the fascia connective tissue and really getting the brain in better connection with the rest of the body. And then functional neurology also takes a more in-depth approach than standard neurology with better diagnostics and exercises. For instance, with the vision, it's different things you do with your eyes, and there are diagnostics for that too with a special headset, and the various things that can be done for balance and mobility training. And functional nutrition also, there are lab tests to determine what a person needs nutritionally on an in-depth level. And so I've done that, and also some homeopathic protocols. And that's a work in progress also.
Excellent. And thank you so much for sharing all those. That is insightful for those that may be looking for options and ways to go about improving their own health. Now, hopefully, people are. I know I am introduced to some things that I know I've maybe heard of, but not exactly understood or had enough familiarity to be able to put my mind around it, I guess. And I know we're coming up on our last couple of minutes here. I'm curious if there's anything else that you want to make sure to cover before we are all done. I want to make sure to open that up for you to share your mind with us.
There's also hyperbaric oxygen therapy, and I tried a few sessions of that, though my ears disagreed with it.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, you gotta. I suppose it takes some trial and error to figure out which things are going to work best for each individual person.
Mm-hmm.
So okay, so this is your podcast, Choose Greater Health. When do you run your podcast, and how can people find it?
Every second and fourth Fridays of the month at 2 p.m. Central, and it's on broadcast to YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, and maybe also Instagram.
Excellent. And if people want to reach you directly, you want to share your website again, and if you had any other contact information you'd like to share?
PaigeSpears.com, and I can also send you my personal profile information for the show notes.
Excellent. And actually, you want to spell your name just to make sure everybody can get to the website well?
PaigeSpeers.
Excellent. So PaigeSpears.com. I'll say that one more time then. PaigeSpeers.com. Did I get that correct?
Yes.
Excellent. All right. Well, I am so happy to have had this chance to talk more with you today and to learn more about your journey and where you're headed with things. To be able to share out also where people can find the resources that you're providing on your website at paigespears.com. Thank you so much, Paige, for all that you are doing. I'm going to go ahead and turn it back to you here with, I guess you kind of have given us a take-home message to some extent, but any last words?
There are always more options than are initially presented, and keep looking.
Excellent. That is the best advice. I love that. Thank you so much, Paige, for all you do with your journey here and for what you're sharing out. And with Choose Greater Health, like I said at the beginning, what a perfect way to approach life, choosing greater health. So thank you so much. I am here with the World of Ability Podcast Network. My name is Sue Roskoff. And again, you can find Paige and her podcast, Choose Greater Health, on the second and fourth Fridays of the month at 2 p.m. Central. Thank you so much, Paige. And as always, from all of us here at the network, we thank you.